What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm Albert Vartanian with my co-host, the FPL Oracle. I keep saying it, and he keeps getting better and better and better and better and better. Martin Levionnois. We got to start off with our, as we always say, quote-unquote credentials. Last week, 79 points from you. I had a good week. I topped you. You had 72. I had 79. I had to make some ground up on you because, I mean, you're moving up the table pretty quickly. Overall, for me, I'm in 16,782. Not too shabby. And I'd feel really proud of myself if you weren't in the top 2,000, Marty. 72 points last week, as I said. 2,075 overall. How you feel right now?
It feels good, honestly. I mean, I've had quite a few green arrows in a row, which especially at this point, once you start climbing higher and higher, it gets more and more difficult. But I've had, I think, 6 or 7 green, 6 green arrows in a row, which is fantastic. I'm thrilled. I mean, it was looking like a small red arrow until yesterday. I had your guy, Reguilon, with the assist, the 3 bonus points, the clean sheet. He came up huge for me. So that was a really nice surprise. I mean, I was totally surprised, but I guess the assist was a bit of a surprise. You're always banking on clean sheets, hopefully. But I'm thrilled with the start I'm having this season. And, the Christmas period is always one that in the past I've struggled in a little bit. I mean, everyone struggles at some point during the season for the most part, unless you go on to win the whole thing. And I'm hoping to get the Christmas period right this year, make some good moves, and long term, I really want to finish top 10K and even push on for the top 1,000. That'd be amazing. So we'll see if I can do it this year.
Yeah, with teams, especially during the Christmas period, I mean, there's so many fixtures. There's going to be rotation. Plus, you have Europe as well to consider. Players are going to go down from injuries, considering how much that they're playing now. So maybe we should talk about that quickly. I mean, going into the Christmas period, I feel like what I do every single season, and it kills me, it kicks me in the ass, is I'm too reactive. I just start making too many changes. I start taking too many hits, making the wrong transfers because this guy is out, so I want to bring this guy in, and then, you know what I mean? It's just a lot goes on. So I think, personally for me, heading into this Christmas period, I'm going to be a lot more chill like I was last week. And so I had 2 transfers. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hold off. Let me just have my team play it out, and then I'll make my decisions next week. I think it's best to maybe wait and see during this time than to be super reactive because you can really dig a hole that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. Last week I was in a similar position. I had two free transfers, and I ended up making a swap between 2 4.5 midfielders. That's how boring my transfer was this week. So yeah, I think I may actually do something. Maybe not that same thing this week, but I have 2 free transfers because of course I banked one from last week, and I think it's going to be something I consider again this week's a small, inconsequential move, I guess, just to hang on to 2 moves and see if I need them. With such a busy Christmas period, injuries can pop up. You want to plan ahead, but you also want to have that flexibility of having, if possible, 2 transfers in a single game week because you may not be able to afford somebody. You may have to get rid of 2 players because of an injury or something. So I agree. Try not to be too reactive. Try to plan ahead and maybe take a step back and take a step away from FPL at certain points during the transfer, because I think a lot of people, myself and you included, we have strong benches. A lot of people have this playing bench strategy this year. So we're going to see rotation. We're going to see injuries. We're going to see some surprise Manchester City starting 11 where Cole Palmer gets 90 minutes one week. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be one of those periods of time where you're not going to get every decision right. Having a strong bench, having the flexibility, and ultimately not taking those hits, like you mentioned, over the Christmas period, I think is going to be really good in the long run.
Yeah, and don't be that manager who brings in Cole Palmer after playing 190-minute game and he gets 2 assists. It's just not going to happen. That's something that I would do as a novice in the past is, oh, well, look at this guy. He's 4.5. He's starting for Manchester City. He played 1 game. He got 2 assists. I got to bring him in. And that's just not the way to go. We should talk about this week, Marty, big game week 15. Harry Kane, or should I say the Harry Kane conundrum. If you have him, he's got a fantastic fixture this week against Norwich at home. He hasn't scored. Well, he didn't score anyway last week. He's got 1 goal in the Premier League this season, which is no bueno. But it looks like the goals are coming. If you don't have him, 2 questions. So if you don't have him, should you bring him in? And if you have him, do you just hold?
The first part of that question is, if you don't have him, should you bring him in? My answer is no. I just think at this point, if you want a Spurs attacking asset, I think Son would be the one I'm looking at just for the price. And also, if you look at Spurs and the way they play, I mean, Harry Kane, the defensive midfielder at times in the past. And I mean, we'll see how it shapes up long term under Conte. But for me right now, as a Kane owner, I'm very frustrated. I brought this guy in. I saw the turn of fixtures. I saw the new manager, and I'm like, okay, number one, maybe I get that new manager bump. And number two, the timing of the bump with the new manager and the fixtures, maybe he'll start scoring goals. And ultimately, that hasn't paid dividends for me right now. But Norwich this weekend, I know it's a tasty fixture from everyone's point of view at home against an awful team defensively overall. It's just not worth the transfer, especially if you're making one or two moves to get him in. For me, as an owner, I'm holding this week because the fixture's so good. But I think long term, I'm going to look at dropping him. And obviously, if you look back, I forget what game week we talked about this. Kane, up until right around now, was kind of a make weight for Cristiano Ronaldo in a lot of people's teams. And I think especially with the performance against Arsenal, I'm obviously Kane not scoring, Ronaldo starting to score again, new manager there. I want to kind of wait and see, and especially within game week 16, Cristiano Ronaldo and Manchester United, they play Norwich. So if you're targeting that fixture, it's a perfect time to do that. And I think, like I said at the top, don't bring Kane in if you don't have him. And if you do have him, hold off at least until after this week, because even though he's been a dud so far, Norwich is such a good fixture, it doesn't make sense to hop off of that right now.
No, and I mean, the chances are there. It's not like he wasn't shooting. It's not like he didn't have chances. He was in on goal for one, and you would think with Harry Kane you're going to see the net bulge, but it just didn't happen. It just wasn't one of those days. I think the team is working hard. They're finally setting into that Conte system. The goals will come. I mean, maybe it won't come in the next few weeks, but I think eventually they will. But there's options there with premium strikers, like you're saying. Cristiano Ronaldo looks like he's also first choice, not only on the team sheet moving forward, hopefully, but he's first choice penalty taker as well, which is very big in FPL. Let's talk about James Maddison. Not a bad price, 6.7. I mean, if you heard this a couple seasons ago based on his form then, you'd snap him right up. He'd be one of the best bargains in the game. He's starting to play well again. He's starting to get healthy. 2 goals and 2, including 2 assists. I like him a lot. If I need to make a move to free up some money and I want a player at that low of a price who can get me some returns moving forward, I think Maddison might be that guy.
Yeah, I think so. He's definitely worth considering. His ownership is so low in the grand scheme of things as well. Yeah. 6.7% owned at the moment when we're recording this. And I think one thing that people need to factor into their strategy is targeting some differentials. Obviously, everyone knows you want Salah, you want Trent, you want Reece James, Chilwell when he was healthy. A lot of people, Cancelo on the back end there. So a lot of people kind of have the same template team. And you're not really going to see a large amount of, I guess, fluctuation in your rank, especially when you get to, I'm in the top, 3K right now, trying to push on, and I need to find some differentials. And even if you're well below that, if you're outside the top 100K, 200K, and you want to keep climbing, you need to take some risks. And someone like Maddison is, I guess, definitely a bit of a risk because, I mean, we've seen his form dip in the past. We've seen him deal with some injuries. But if you can grab him while he's hot, while he's playing well, he has double digits returns in the last 2 games. And the fixtures are not too bad in the near future for Leicester City and James Maddison. They have Aston Villa away in game week 15, Newcastle at home after that, and then Spurs and Everton. So the next 4 are not too bad. And then right around Christmas, they have the 2 of the harder games in Liverpool and City. But he's someone who I think if you can grab him now, ride him out while he has good fixtures, while he's in good form, you're kind of getting both sides of the coin there with the fixtures and the form. And then possibly if his price rises, ship him out for someone else in a few weeks, maybe bank 0.1 or 0.2, depending how he does there. You can take that and be happy with it. But for me, he's someone who I've got my eye on, especially as a Rafinha owner, whose fixtures after this game week are really bad. So making that switch, going up to Maddison from Rafinha is something I can consider for the short term. And in that mid-range midfielder bracket, I guess, he's one of the better options, especially based on his form right now.
And speaking of good fixtures, Manchester City, Watford away, Wolves at home, Leeds at home, Newcastle away, Leicester at home, and then Brentford away. And one player we really need to talk about, Marty, Bernardo Silva, probably somebody I wouldn't have considered at all coming into the season, but he's played almost every minute for Manchester City, bar a few games. He has 5 goals, 2 assists, 3 goals in his last 4. And like I said, it looks like he's just in that team at the moment. How long is that going to last? I'm not sure. But based on current form, he should be one of the first players on the team sheet. Only 15.8% owned. If you don't have him and you want a Manchester City asset, I think he might be the one, even over Foden, Gundogan, who might be injured right now, Grealish, and even Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah, maybe he ends up being this year's Gundogan. We'll see. I mean,
Right.
last year we saw what Gundogan did, over the course of the season, a career high in goals, and it's tricky to predict this sort of thing because obviously Pep. I don't know what it is with him. I mean, he seems to pick and choose every season who his guy's going to be. And maybe this year is Bernardo Silva because obviously last year, if you look at the minutes versus the minutes now, he's on pace to have significantly more than he had last year. And I think he started 12 out of 14 this year for Man City. So based on that, getting full 90 minutes in majority of the games, the numbers look good. The price is very good as well. Especially if you want exposure to Manchester City's attack and you want someone who is reliably getting those minutes. Even though he may not get you returns week in and week out, it's always nice to have a Manchester City attacker because let's say they put 3, 4, 5 goals past Watford. They can do it against multiple teams between now and the end of the Christmas break and really between now and February because their fixtures are so good. And even if you don't hit every week, if you hit every now and then or he chips in the odd assist or odd goal here and there, for that price, 7.4 at the moment, I think it's a risk that a lot of people are going to take, and that's why he's the third highest transferred in player this week. And I think we're going to see that continue if he can continue to get minutes and returns.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his, not only as an FPL player, but an actual player. I think he's one of the best midfielders in the world. And obviously, we see him playing in a false nine. He can play multiple positions. He's all over the pitch, both feet. Just a great player. Speaking of great players, Rafinha. He can be frustrating to some of us because of how streaky he can be with his returns. But, I mean, considering how poor Leeds have been this year at 6.7, Rafinha has 6 goals this season. Very good fixture this week against Brentford at home. One that he potentially could return in. Hopefully he scores. And looks like he's on penalties as well with Patrick Bamford out. But after this week, I think it's time to say so long, farewell to our boy Rafinha. Marty? Hello? Marty! Can you hear me? I think we're having some technical issues here, folks. Let me message Marty. But you're back. Martin Levin back. Yeah, Martin Levin back is bringing sexy back. Martin Levionnois is back. And by the way, the hair looks good today. Just got to throw that out there. Are you trying something different? You got new product?
No, I don't think
Head and
so.
Shoulders per Plus?
Can't give
Come
you my
on,
secrets,
dude. I thought we were
it's,
boys. Anyway, we're talking about our boy Rafinha. I was saying pretty good value up until this point at 6.7, 6 goals. I mean, he can be frustrating to FPL managers because of how streaky he's been with his returns. But with that said, he has one good fixture coming up against Brentford. And then I think it's time to say, see you later to my boy Rafinha, at least for the time being with some of the fixtures that are coming up.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, this is someone who, although his price has risen since I've brought him in, I don't mind losing that and possibly buying him again down the road. Just because the upcoming fixtures after the match against Brentford at home are awful, really. I mean, Chelsea away, Man City away, Arsenal at home, which isn't that bad, but maybe Arsenal plays well that day. We'll see. Liverpool away after that, and then Villa at home. Not bad. So, I mean, ultimately, 3 out of 5 of those are really bad fixtures for him. And I think based on the price range he's at, you can look at much better options. Obviously, we talked about Maddison before. You could upgrade to Bernardo. There's other options, even a little cheaper than him, possibly. I think over the Christmas period, someone like maybe, I don't like it as much as some of the other guys, but Conor Gallagher, Smith Rowe has been scoring quite a bit for Arsenal, and I imagine he's going to continue to be a fixture in the team, and he's even cheaper. So players like that, I think, in and around that price range, whether it's a bit higher or a bit lower, I think in this case you want to target the fixtures, especially because the form is so streaky. And Leeds, I mean, they just haven't been the same as we've seen in the past. So for me, Rafinha is a 1-week hold, and then I'm definitely looking to move him on next week in game week.
Yeah, you got, Jared Bowen is one player to look at, 6.4, Fornals as well from West Ham. And yeah, I mean, Maddison, there's Smith Rowe. I think those are probably the top. I think, to me, the top 2 would probably be Smith Rowe and James Maddison as a replacement for him, or you just drop down and get someone super cheap. But there's options, and obviously there's options everywhere, including forward. Emmanuel Dennis, you wrote it down here. Best budget striker, ? 5.4. I think so. I think him and Joshua King. Josh King, I think, is what, 0.2 more than him. Josh King on penalties. Josh King I think, has more touches in the box as well. Dennis, if I'm not wrong, there's a chance he could be going to the African Cup of Nations. We might have to clarify that. So if that's the case, then I'd probably lean towards Josh King. But if you want to bring in a budget striker and maybe stack up the midfield, I think Dennis or King has to be that guy.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, ultimately, long term, again, the fixtures, I always look at this, and especially when you're trying to play in long term and try not to set yourself up for multiple short term transfers. This is someone who, whether it's him or King, like you said, I think long term, based on AFCON and just touches in the box, penalties, King could be a better option, although I think he's up to 0.3 higher than Dennis.
It's gone up,
That may change. It may change just because Dennis, I think his price will continue to rise. Because he's the highest transferred in player so far this week, with over 400,000 people bringing him in. And awful fixture this week against Man City, but you never know. Maybe he gets a return, and then after that, it's pretty good. They have Brentford away, Burnley away, Crystal Palace at home, Wolves, West Ham between now and the new year. So it's not too bad, and I think he's someone who, or both of these players are someone you could consider, especially when you're trying to balance the budget. Maybe you need those funds to upgrade your midfield. Maybe you need them to upgrade at the back end as well. Maybe you want to double up on Man City defenders. Maybe you want to double up on Chelsea defenders. Depending on the structure of your team, let's say you have, a lot of people have Tony. He's 6.7 right now. You want to drop down from Tony, grab a Watford striker, and then maybe invest those funds elsewhere. It makes sense, especially as your third striker on your team. For me right now, it's definitely a wait, at least past this Man City fixture. If you really, really want them and you can't afford them if their price rises, maybe you make that transfer now. But as someone who can afford to wait, I think it's at least wait and see one more week, and then we'll reassess after this Man City.
Yeah, based on what I might do, I want to swap out Jimenez, so I might bring in Dennis or King and even just throw him on the bench for this week, and just because I got a pretty good midfield, and just do the 3-5-2 and go from there. But in terms of Emmanuel Dennis going to AFCON, he hasn't been called up yet, but there's a pretty good chance he's going to lead the line for the Super Eagles. Marty, do you know who the Super Eagles are? Yay! There you go. Some of the best kits in world football. So something to keep an eye on. If that's the case, we won't know, and maybe for another few weeks. But if he's going, Joshua King is probably going to be that guy. And what I like about Watford, I will say this: they do pass the eye test, because against Chelsea, they didn't just sit back; they actually attacked, and they've been attacking the big teams. It's the same thing to Manchester United. You can say whatever you want about United, but for the fact that Watford, to play them the way that they did, shows them how they play under Claudio Ranieri, and that's why these guys are scoring goals. Any more players to talk about? I don't think so, but we need to talk about what we're going to do. Game Week 15 plans. Marty might make one move not to lose it. Roll to Game Week 16, 2 moves, which will give you a lot to do.
Yeah, this is one where I touched on it briefly before, and I'm in a position where I'm very happy with my back five. My goalkeepers, I'm not going to touch. I don't have to. The striker situation right now is one where I have Harry Kane, who I'm looking at dropping.
This week, or are you going to wait?
Like I mentioned before. I'm going to wait. I want to wait at least until after the Norwich fixture. I would never drop someone ahead of Norwich, especially at home. And, hopefully Harry Kane can give me something. Give me some sort of return and pay me back for giving him some faith at this point in the season. But Antonio is one who I know a lot of people are dropping right now. His price has dropped, quite a bit, and it may even drop again because they play Chelsea this weekend. But I think long term it's worth keeping him. So I'm not looking at dropping him now. We were talking about it before we started recording. West Ham have already punched their ticket to the next round in the Europa League. They could rest him. And I mean, if I was Moyes, I would rest him, and then they could focus on the Premier League and give him 90 minutes every time, or as much as they need to. And although the goals have really dried up for him, I'm hoping that over the Christmas period that changes. And I want to hang on to him just in case, because I'm a fixture-first manager and the fixtures are so good. So ultimately what I'm looking at is someone like, unfortunately, another guy who I've stuck with for so long, and Brian Mbeumo. he's just – I think it's time. Despite the two good fixtures coming up, I think for me and how I'm planning my moves, I may drop him I'm not totally sure who I'm leaning to. Maybe Smith Rowe, just because I think over the Christmas period, again, he's going to be nailed
Yep.
for Arsenal, both short term and long term. And then bank my other transfer next week, and then I can possibly look at Kane to Ronaldo, and then we touched on Rafinha only having one more week. Maybe that'll be my other move, Rafinha to someone else. And I have the funds to make all those moves happen. So that's what I'm thinking right now, just because you got to think long term. And I think all three of those moves, whether it's one this week and then two next week, I think it sets me up really well for the Christmas
Yeah,
period.
I like that. And I just want to touch on Antonio quickly. Yes, he's dipped in form, but the whole team is dipped in form, especially in the Premier League. 1-0 losers to Wolverhampton, 2-1 to Manchester City, and then 1-1 to Brighton. Three pretty tough fixtures, considering those are decent defenses as well. Manchester being the best defense in the league at the moment. And then they get Chelsea, another tough fixture. But after that, I mean, we were talking, as you mentioned, off air. You look at these fixtures, okay? Burnley away, Arsenal away, Norwich, Southampton, Watford, Crystal Palace, Leeds, Manchester United, Watford, Leicester, Newcastle, Wolves. I would back Antonio to score in at least 50% might be big, but I think I'd back him to score in like 50% of those games. I can see him scoring against Burnley and Arsenal and Norwich and Southampton and Watford, Palace, Leeds, United. I mean, United's probably going to get a bit better under the new manager, but Antonio at his price, I think, is still banging the goals. I think come the end of the season, he'll be in and around one of the top scorers in the league. Okay, Marty, time for my team. It's time for the best segment of all time. Consult the Oracle. So I have 2 free transfers, and there's so many things that I can do. Let's start with Raul Jimenez. He's got to go. I mean, I'm sorry, buddy. He had a chance to score if Traore squared him this past weekend. He would have had a goal, and maybe I'm thinking about something different, but probably not, because considering these fixtures coming up, Liverpool, Manchester City, Brighton, Chelsea, Watford, Arsenal, Manchester United, that's brutal. So I'm thinking about swapping him out, bringing either Dennis or King in. I want to get Son, but the only way I'd be able to do that is by dropping Phil Foden. And I don't know if dropping Phil Foden at the moment is the best decision, considering Manchester City. They have Watford, Wolves, Leeds, and Newcastle, Leicester, Brentford all coming up. So maybe Son is a player that I leave out of there. But if you were me and you have this issue where you bring in Dennis or King in for Jimenez, who do you drop from the midfield to add Son or maybe another top end or even a Manchester City midfielder? Mason Mount or Phil Foden?
That's a tricky one.
I also have Rafinha.
You also have Rafinha. I don't think you could probably afford Son by dropping Jimenez and using Rafinha.
No, it's going to have to be Jimenez and Foden unless I take a hit.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes sense, though. I mean, the tricky part with Foden, as much as I like Man City, it's just the rotation. And over the Christmas period, it'll be so frustrating for you to keep, let's say, Phil Foden. Maybe he comes off the bench some games. Maybe he starts other games. I'm sure he will get returns. The fixtures are too good, and ultimately Manchester City are too good. But I think with Son, you get a guaranteed, I mean, pretty much every week you'd imagine he's going to be guaranteed almost 90 minutes or 90 minutes, which all at the end of the day could provide you more points. The Spurs fixtures are pretty good as well. Let's see their fixtures over the Christmas period too. So I think it's pretty good overall, minus the Liverpool game. So Norwich next, Brighton, Leicester. Those could be trickier, at least on paper. They're not the easiest, but they're not awful. Liverpool's a tricky fixture, but then between Christmas and New Year's, Crystal Palace, Southampton, Watford. So pretty good overall between now and game week 21. So if you were to grab Son, I imagine he's going to play more minutes than Foden, but the fixtures may not be as good. So you kind of have to decide for yourself.
Yeah.
Are you looking at someone who's going to play probably every game or pretty much every game over the holidays, whereas Foden may play half the minutes or maybe 2/3 of the minutes if we're lucky. So it makes sense for sure, and I think ultimately by doing that as well, you get one of the Watford attackers who are going to have good fixtures as well. If you get Josh King, maybe he gives you more than Jimenez too. So it makes sense. Even though it may not be the best fielding decision, just because you're dropping a Manchester
and I feel like
City
I drop
asset.
him, he's going to start scoring goals. But I could also do this. I could just do the one transfer this week where I bring in Dennis or King for Jimenez. Next week, I swap out Rafinha, and I swap out Brandon Williams. I bring in Reece James, right?
Oh yeah, because you have no Chelsea.
No, so I bring in
defender,
Reece James, and then I have 6.7 left in the midfield. I can bring in Madison or Smith Rowe.
yeah. Madison may rise again. We'll
Yeah,
see. I
but
mean,
as
he
of
may
right
not,
now,
but,
that's what that's another option.
as of right
And
now,
that would give
it's
me
another option.
TAA, Cancelo, James, Livramento, and Emerson Royale as my defenders, and then I would have Mount, Madison, or Smith Rowe with Salah, Jota, Foden, Dennis, Antonio, Tony.
It's a good option. It strengthens your back line. It kind of gives you a bit more. You'll probably end up playing a back four more often.
Yeah,
with
which
that
I
team
don't
just
like
because of Reece
personally,
James.
but this season it makes sense.
This season it's been incredible. I may actually end up playing a back five this
Oof.
weekend, which feels. I've done it. I think I did it a
Yeah.
few weeks ago out of necessity, but this week it might be by choice. So we'll see whether I mean, it's between Livramento and if I bring in Smith Rowe, I have to decide between the two. And Livramento has a match at home, and Smith Rowe plays away at Everton. So we'll see if it's a back four or a back five. But I think this year more than ever, like a lot of people have said, and like we've said, this is the year where you can get away with back four or back five, just because the fullbacks and even some of the center backs are doing well. But ultimately, I think, I mean, if you have Cancelo, Reece James, Trent, and you have Emerson as well, yeah. So it's a strong back four, back five as well. So it makes sense. And I think now that you said it, I may actually lean towards making one move this week and giving yourself more.
Because then,
so
if I do that move, I was just telling you about where I bring in Reece James, drop Rafinha, bring in, let's say, Smith Rowe. The week after that, I can swap out Foden, and if Bernardo's still hitting, I can bring in Bernardo, and that leaves me, I mean, his price is going to rise, but I'll probably leave me around 0.6, 0.5 in the bank.
Yeah, and another thing as well, by waiting a week, you have Mason Mount, who obviously had a good game last week, but we'll see if he continues to stay.
Yeah, that's a big
fit
one.
And stay in the Chelsea lineup. So it kind of gives you a bit of flexibility, and it's easier to make moves when you have two transfers, of course. So if you're not, unless you're targeting, I think ultimately, unless you're targeting the Norwich game for Spurs and you want Son this week, it's probably best to just hold off.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to hold off. I'm just going to do the one move. So, Marty, you know my hand this week. I'm going with I kind of want King. So that's going to be a last minute decision. King Dennis. They won't play. I probably won't play them this week anyway. So it really doesn't matter. But yeah, that was consult the FPL Oracle. I might need to make up a graphic that just comes up like in smoke and it just boom. You know what I mean? Covers the screen. All right, captains. Mohamed Salah. What else are you going to do?
Mohamed Salah.
Okay, I understand
Yeah,
Kane. I understand backing Kane. Would I do it right now? No. Son, I understand, but no. City attacker, good luck. I mean, it's going to want to throw it on João Cancelo as maybe another option. Other than that, I mean, it's Salah. Like, the majority of FPL managers are going to captain him. So if you're one of these players who does it and he scores, red arrow, most likely.
Yeah, this is just, at this point in the season, don't risk it. We're going to have some weeks without him when he goes to the African Cup of Nations, and then we can actually have to think about our captain picks. But ultimately, it just doesn't make sense to go with someone else. I was considering Harry Kane prior to him blanking against Brentford, and I mean, ultimately blanking every week except for one this year. But just because of the fixture, I saw Norwich at home, and he was in the back of my mind, but I'm not going to look elsewhere this weekend. I think it's the safest play. It's paid off. I mean, I think pretty much every time this year. I think he's gotten us at least one return.
Yeah.
Right. So it's been just an easy ride with Mo Salah. And I think over the course of the season, as more players start to come back and be healthy, like Ronaldo, maybe he stays in form and they have some really good fixtures. Maybe people start to consider Ronaldo
Absolutely.
a bit more. As Lukaku gets healthy and he comes back, maybe he comes into consideration. I think over the course of the season, we'll see a bit more fluctuation, but right now it just doesn't make sense to look elsewhere.
I'm looking at the fixture list right now. Yeah, Ronaldo, don't like Vardy against Villa. I mean, I can understand Jota. I mean, if you captain Jota, I'm not mad at you. I mean, I still think it should be Salah, but I mean, his form right now is unbelievable. I mean, look at this. 1 goal, 2 goals, 8 goals already. 8 goals, 1 assist, and he hasn't even played every game this season yet. So that tells you a lot. Let's get into the final part of the show, Marty. Upset pick of the week. Do you have one for us this week?
I mean, I was looking at the early Saturday morning game, West Ham and Chelsea.
That's an interesting one.
Chelsea, it's an interesting one. And I mean, I know West Ham have dipped in form, and Chelsea, they didn't have the best performance against Watford. And this is one where, it's a London derby. You never know. And there's something about that I don't know, that time slot as well, that early, 12:30 in the UK, 7:30 here for us. And there's something about that game. And I think that's the one I'm looking at, West Ham beating or getting a result at least against Chelsea. It may not be a win, but I think they could possibly get a draw against Chelsea. Especially, I know Reece James is back in the team, but Chelsea are without a few players.
Big time. Kovacic, Conte, Chilwell, Chalobah.
Yeah, so I think if there's ever going to be a time for West Ham to capitalize, it could be now. And ultimately, West Ham need those points. They're in a top 4 battle right now, sitting in 4th place. So with Spurs, United, Arsenal behind them, Leicester, starting to find some form, they're going to need to pick up some points. So I think this is a big potential 6-pointer for both
look at
sides.
the odds here. Plus 375 West Ham, minus 134 Chelsea. So you get some pretty good value there.
Yeah, I think that's the one. I mean, aside from that, like Wolves and Liverpool, I just can't see them stopping Liverpool. Watford, Man City, I feel the same
You're not
way.
backing the Hornets this weekend? Come on, man.
I'm not backing the Hornets this weekend. I can't do it. And I mean, even just elsewhere, when you look at like the Spurs should beat Norwich.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Should.
United and Palace. I think United are actually United were not very good.
No, they weren't at all.
But I still think they can get a result against Palace at home. But so for me, if there has to be one, I think it's West Ham.
This head-to-head between Manchester City and Watford. 4-0, 8-0, 6-0, 3-1. The last 4 fixtures. And Raheem Sterling, 1-2, 3-4, 5-6-7. Oh my God! 9 goals in his last 6 games against Watford, and Bernardo Silva scored a hat-trick against them. I love that. City's going to bowl them out probably. So there's that. Upset pick of the week for me. I like West Ham. I like that West Ham call. I do. Everton's against Arsenal. No, I think Arsenal should be able to take care of that there. Spurs, yeah. Palace. No, they're missing some defenders. They might be missing Joe Ward and Anderson, so that could be a big problem. That could be a big Ronaldo day, by the way.
Yeah, I don't trust them against United. I think United will get the result there, even though I don't think they're.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm riding the West Ham train. Let's do it, Antonio. I would. How great would that be? An unexpected Antonio goal this week, and then you're like, you know what? Thank God I held him, and it just makes that decision seem so right.
Yeah, he's sitting on my bench right now, so I'd be a bit annoyed if he scored. But
no, don't do that.
I'd be happy for him, but maybe it'll open the floodgates.
So you're doing back 5, eh?
As of right now, I'm sitting with a back 5. We'll see if. My decision is always made by Friday night.
Mine too.
There's no way I'm waking up at 6 a.m. to change my.
So
FPL
as of right now, here's my team: TAA, Emerson Royale, Cancelo, Salah, Jota, Rafinha, Mount, Foden, Antonio, Tony. That's my team this week.
It's a good team. I think like we said, making one move is the way to go for you this weekend. For me, it's Ramsdale and net, back 5 at the moment: Cancelo, Trent, Reguilon, James, and Livramento, Salah, Jota, Rafinha, Kane, and Tony. And for me, ultimately,
it's a good team, man.
If I bring in Smith Rowe for Mbeumo, it may be Smith Rowe over Livramento, just because I know the fixture is good and they're at home, but I just feel like that's going to be one of those 1-1 draws between Brighton and Southampton, and Livermento's going to have no clean sheet, and maybe Smith Rowe scores for me. So I think if I end up making that move, I'm leaning towards a back 4.
As much as I want to overtake you in our mini league, I really want you to just keep going. I want you to get into 3 digits. If you can finish in 3 digits this year, that's quite the accomplishment. I think you might have to be in, like, the fantasy football Scott, they have like Hall of Fame or something. It's like the top experts. FPL Oracle, right there.
We'll see. I mean, some people do it consistently.
Who cares?
So,
hey, dude, some people don't do it ever. Right? Whoever does it consistently, that's the minority. Because let's be honest, the majority of people who do play FPL, they're like me. They're just, they just follow what you say.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a lot. I mean, 26
Lots
games
to go.
Lots
to go.
Week,
Plus
so
this crazy Christmas period.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I mean, once the new year hits, we get a second wild card. You really want to start thinking about your chips long term as well. So there's a whole other dimension as soon as it hits 2022. So we'll see if
yes, and we will get into those conversations about chips and more wild cards and fixtures and all that stuff. Every single week we'll be here. Game week previews, FPL. It's me and the FPL Oracle. Thanks for watching and good luck this weekend. Cool. Awesome.